Another word of Scripture, this one from the book of Genesis. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. And then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered abroad upon the whole face of the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Lord said, "Look, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad, and from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. And therefore it was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. May these words be to us our light and our life.
Thanks be to God.
My robe today is courtesy of Claremont Graduate University, which chose this flaming red color as its school color. Myself, I think it's a bit bright for academic dignity, but it is perfect for Pentecost. Every story has an underlying structure or pattern. In fact, some people who study myth and literature have suggested that there are only a handful of these structures, and that no matter how complicated the characters or how complex the situation or how detailed the geography or history, all these things are just details that enable us to tell the same story over and over again and not get tired of it. Joseph Campbell famously brought this to our attention some years back with the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He describes a basic pattern of the hero's departure, initiation, and return that unfolds in one ancient culture after another. Think of the story of Moses, or Luke Skywalker for that matter, or Dorothy, in the pattern that's suggested by Campbell, that he lays out: the call to adventure, the refusal of the call, supernatural aid, tests and trials, encounter with a wise helper, and a great gift. A handful of stories, each told 1,000 times, each with its own unique variations and transformations, but underneath the same structure. Each one starts with an initial development, then comes some kind of trouble, an obstacle, or a conflict, followed by resolution. Screenwriters refer to this introduction of trouble as writing jeopardy into the plot. So, as media outlets continue to roll out reports of global warming, I keep turning back to the book of Genesis, and especially the creation story. Because as our climate changes, we are all in jeopardy, human beings, but also creation itself. And it has reminded me of a class that I once took with a biblical scholar named John Berquist. He pointed out an underlying structure in this creation story that I hadn't seen before and that I really appreciate. He said that the Hebrew word that is translated in Genesis 1, verse 1, as created, as in the beginning when God created the heavens and the earth, that means creation by division. Think of it like an amoeba. There is one. It divides itself. Now there are two, and creation has been increased. This process is similar for God. Step by step, God creates specific things by separating them from each other. Water and earth and sky, sun and moon, stars, planets, trees, creatures of the sea, creatures of the sky, creatures of the earth, human beings, even man and woman. In short, creation is about diversity. If we think of creation that way, then the Tower of Babel story is about the undoing of creation. Human beings are joining in one single dominating idea. One could say an ideology. They speak one language. They've gathered in one place, and they have one goal. So what does God do in this situation? God reintroduces the idea of creation as division. In this case, different languages, resulting again in diversity. Now consider the story in Acts. Thanks, that was fun. The disciples have gathered together in Jerusalem. They start speaking in different languages, but now the Spirit of God fills those assembled with something new, a spirit of understanding. Something important has happened. Understanding produces unity, but not the unity of sameness or the loss of diversity. The spirit of understanding does not restore the world to one language, but it brings people together in a way that enables them to maintain their distinctiveness. The underlying structure of this story is the unity of God and the diversity of creation. The Tower of Babel writes jeopardy into the story. Diversity is being absorbed into sameness, and undoing diversity is undoing creation. God restores diversity by introducing multiple languages. And then, in the Pentecost story, God restores unity, but a unity in diversity through a spirit of understanding. It is customary for Christians to interpret this inrushing of the Spirit as the birth of the church. But if we understand the aim of creation as diversity, perhaps we can, in a spirit of understanding, use the story to help us come to terms with our religiously plural world. Because the world itself is in jeopardy, and the diversity of religions has been part of the problem. The time has come for the religions of the world to find unity in our diversity, to come together in a spirit of understanding, because I think it is the religions of the world that are our best hope for peace and the healing of the planet. Peace permeates the gospel teaching. It underlies all of the prophetic books in the Hebrew Bible, voices raised time and again against economic and social injustice, because peace thrives in the absence of tyranny and oppression. Peace thrives in a society based on respect and equality. And this vision is not limited to Christianity. All of the world's great religions lift up the ideal of peace, and no faith has a perfect record of it, but that doesn't mean that the goal, the vision, the inspiration, the imperative to let peace prevail on earth is not integral to Hinduism, to Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I think it's especially important these days to put our commitment to peace in the context of religious pluralism, because religions have so often been the cause of war, and religion is an inextricable element in the ongoing conflict between the United States and the Middle East. I mean, I know there are lots of other factors, not the least of which is oil, But religion, especially in its more ideological forms, is a factor. Increasingly, even secular analysts understand that we cannot approach the serious problems of this planet without acknowledging religious beliefs. And that means we have to learn about those beliefs. We have to talk to each other. That's the thinking behind Pluralism Sunday. That's an initiative that was started about 10 years ago by a group called the Network of Spiritual Progressives. It's been embraced by the United Church of Christ and by many Presbyterian churches. And it's most often celebrated by a stroke of genius, I think, on Pentecost Sunday. On Pluralism Sunday, participating churches dedicate a portion of their worship to a celebration of our interfaith world. We thank God for our religious diversity, recognizing that we can grow closer to God, deepen our compassion, as well as understand our own tradition better through a more intimate awareness of the world's religions. Among other things, Pluralism Sunday encourages us to support other faiths in a spirit of understanding, recognizing that our unity cannot be based on conversion, but must be based on a respect for our differences. We will not save our planet from war and predation by emulating the Tower of Babel. This idea of Pluralism Sunday is new to us here, so I think we can start just by unpacking that term, religious pluralism. Because there are lots of ways to think about it, and each one takes this like one step further. So if we think, first of all, religious pluralism is simply a fact drawn from collected data. That is, it refers to a society or a nation in which numerous distinct religious groups coexist. It's a fact that in this country there are Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and many, many other faiths. To cite this fact is to acknowledge that we are a religiously pluralistic society. Another approach, second, religious pluralism can also refer to a more active engagement between these groups. That is, people of different faiths seek each other out to learn about each other, to listen respectfully without attempting to convince each other of the correctness of their individual set of beliefs. So it's about building relationships that encourage mutual respect and understanding. And third, this one takes us the furthest, religious pluralism can describe a view wherein truth claims are laid aside and the beliefs of other religions are accepted as equally valid. Another way to say this is, my acceptance of your beliefs does not falsify my own. In this third understanding of the term, people may say things like different religions are just different responses to the divine, or even that religion itself is just a social construct, so that what develops in one culture is valid for that culture, and what develops in another culture is equally valid for that culture. But this third view also includes the idea that religions are different paths, each authentic, leading to the same ultimate truth, but a truth only partially glimpsed by any of us, which makes no one religion superior to others. This is like different paths all leading to the same mountaintop. But this view can also go further and suggest that there may not be one single ultimate truth, but several. That is, there may be 2 or 3 mountains with different paths leading to the top. Now, I'm not telling you what to believe, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, but I invite you to find yourself somewhere in that continuum, and then think from that standpoint what it means to live in a religiously pluralistic country, to be a nation of multiple faiths at war on an endangered planet. What understanding is the Spirit urging us toward today? You are part of an ongoing story of creation. You are uniquely valuable to God and uniquely capable of bringing forth in the world something that no one else can. The world needs your uniqueness, but it also needs the uniqueness of others. Water as well, earth and sky as well, sun and moon, stars, planets, trees, creatures of the earth, human beings. We write jeopardy into the creation story whenever we try to be too much of one thing, as individuals, as a nation, as a church. In these challenging times when wars and violent weather make us wonder if we are undoing creation itself, it is imperative that we recognize our unity in diversity. We are unique, but we are also connected. We are diverse in religion, culture, language, and experience, but we are united in our dependence upon this planet. And when you think of it, God writes jeopardy into the story, into us, whenever we grow too comfortable with our privilege, too placid about the status quo, because after all, what can we do about the war in Syria, or racial inequality, or dead zones in the oceans? That's when the spirit of restlessness blows through us, stirring us to rise and add a new twist to the story. We are characters in the story of creation, a story told not just 1,000 times, but 1,000 by 1,000 times. Each of us adds our own unique variations and transformations, but underneath it's the same structure: unity and love of God and sacredness of earth, diversity in the details that make the story our own. And with that, let us heed that spirit and rise as it invites us and sing.